good afternoon. So appreciate it is afternoon, barely. So thank you for coming out. And Dan and I really welcome this opportunity to visit with you a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a set of slides. We're going to talk about some of the university accomplishments over this last year. Then what we're going to do is we'll shift and we'll talk about some other campus level accomplishments. Dan will go through those. Then we'll go back and do a little bit of update on Drive to 25. I'll speak a little bit about the university budget. And then we'll kind of wrap things up, at least from the presentation point of view, talking some specifically about some new initiatives that are moving forward. And these are things like the Into program and others that you've heard about. We want to make sure to give some details, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. Yesterday, we did this in the Tri-Cities, and it was interesting. They updated a couple of the slides and didn't mention anything to us about that, so you put it up, and it's like, wow, that's a little different than it was yesterday. So we'll see what slides are updated today. Hopefully, it's not there's a search for a new president slide in there that I didn't realize. So let's talk about some of our institutional successes, and this is the first graph we'd like to show, and this is based on enrollment as a system over the last 5 to 6 years. And as you can see, we've seen nice continual growth, and we actually have the 2017 numbers up here. So we went for total system-wide enrollment in 2016 was 30,142, and we're somewhere at 30,600 or so students across the system this last year. So some really positive news that we continue to see growth. The one thing I will say, if we look at the crimson bar, and since it's pregame Friday, well, crimson's a great color to have. That area is pretty flat. And what that means is our enrollment here in Pullman has been pretty steady over that period of time. It's seen some growth from 2013, but a lot of the growth occurring through WSU is through our global campus and our other campuses, and I think that's just a reflection of growth patterns in the state as well. If we look, though, at our ethnicity student-wide, this was a key decision that WSU made multiple years ago, that we needed to make sure we were bringing in a really diverse set of students. And if you look here, you can see, and again, this is for everybody, about 58% of our students come in are white. 7% are international, and this represents a real opportunity for WSU, and I think Dan will talk about this a little bit more in one of his sections. The Hispanic Latino students, 13%, Asian, 6%, Black or African American, 3%, and other races and ethnicities are sort of unreported, constitute the rest. But given where we're located in the state of Washington, I think this really says a lot about our commitment to bringing in and supporting a diverse set of students. Now, unfortunately, where this is not reflected in the same way is around our faculty and staff, and that also represents a Drive to 25 opportunity for us, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. Now, one of the things that I often heard when I first got here, and would be at foundation meetings or with alumni or even with faculty, they say, hey, Kirk, the students of today just aren't quite as good as they were several years ago. And what this graph actually shows is there is some real reality to that. What the red bars show is the average high school GPA. The silver line is the composite SAT scores. And you can see, if we look at pre-recession levels in 07, 08, where we were with high school GPA, and then they're clearly in 12 and 13 area. We were down. The caliber of incoming students did have a different profile. The admissions office and staffing was moved over to the Provost office, and under Dan's leadership, we've seen a really nice steady uptick in both the high school GPA and in the overall composite SAT, and we think the numbers will continue to be fairly steady in the 17 class as they were in 2016. Now, the other thing, though, to remember is what even makes this more notable is we're bringing in nearly 4,000 freshmen into Pullman now in 2016. That number was substantially smaller in 07, 08. So it's also a bigger class as well as more academically gifted. Now, you say, well, we don't really want to be at WSU a really highly selective institution. That's not our direction. It's not our DNA. We're the Washington's land-grant university. We need to make sure that we're giving opportunities for Washington students to be successful and to enroll at WSU. Well, one of the challenges we have here is we don't want to bring in students that don't have the academic background to be successful here, that wind up accumulating debt and not graduating. I mean, that's just not good for the students, their families, but it's not good for us as an institution. So when we see this go up, one of the key things is that we need to make sure that we're bringing in well-qualified students that meet our diversity goals and are going to be successful at Washington State, because all of us want to see every student that we enroll, we want to walk across that stage in 4 or 5 years with that degree. So this is a really positive upward trend and something that we're still going to continue to focus on. Well, fundraising this last year, we had 2 years in a row now where you combine them together about $250 million, and this is post a highly successful billion-dollar campaign for Washington State University. So we're in campaign kind of planning mode now for our next campaign. We expect to start that somewhere around the summer of 19. A working goal right now is $1.5 billion over 8 years. So if you just sort of do the math, that means that we need to start having some philanthropic years at WSU that are $250, $275 million in a year. And so that means we're going to continue to hire more people, make sure that we bring in deans and department heads and others that are very externally focused. But this will be a key factor for us moving ahead, and I need some water to drink. On a Friday, it's normally my second martini by this time, so, this is... We also enjoyed one of the larger gifts that we've received in many years this last year, at $16.5 million state gift that funded the Logan Scholars Program. We were in the College of Education recently, and I think 40 students in the College of Education have been beneficiaries of scholarships here. The bottom line is, as we move to the future, as we move to Drive to 25, philanthropy will play an even larger role in its future than it has to date. We also brought some new senior leaders on campus, and when we do leadership searches, sometimes you find that the leaders you need are right here, right at home. Sometimes we want to go out nationally and bring people to WSU. So we had 2 new chancellors start this last year. Daryl DeWald moved from the College of Arts and Sciences dean to being chancellor at WSU Spokane. And one of the things that we did is, because that's such a large, complex college, we asked Daryl to serve both roles for the fall semester. So he's still acting, not acting dean, but he's still doing the role of Arts and Sciences dean for several days a week with his staff, as well as the Spokane chancellor. January 1, he will go full-time to the chancellor's position in Spokane. Paul Petrie, been associated with our newest campus in Everett for multiple years. We made Paul the full-time chancellor this last academic year. We have 3 new vice presidents. Stacy Pearson, our vice president for finance and administration, comes to us from Boise State University. Mary Jo Gonzalez, our vice president for student affairs, comes to us from University of Rhode Island. And before that, she was at Iowa State and is a Cougar, got her master's and PhD here. And then Phil Weiler is our first ever vice president for communications and marketing, who also showed up today. And it's great on a Friday to have your marketing people here. So anyway, we're so pleased to have all 3 of these new vice presidents as part of the WSU team. We also had 2 deans. Mary Rezac is our dean of the Voiland College of Engineering and Architecture. She came to us from Kansas State. And then Lisa Gloss is our interim dean of the graduate school. She takes the place of Bill Andreski, who after multiple years of service is returning to the faculty in our College of Arts and Sciences. Well, in addition to these outstanding new people that we've been able to bring on board, we have several other searches underway. The vice president for advancement and CEO of the foundation, that is one title, or is just one job. We will be doing those interviews the last week of this month, and we have 3 outstanding finalists that we're bringing onto campus, and I certainly encourage the campus community to come and meet the finalists, and we expect to make a decision very soon after that, and hopefully have that new CEO on board by late October, early November. We also are in the midst of a chancellor search on our Tri-Cities campus, and Dan and I and others were there yesterday to dedicate a new building on that campus. Enrollment is up in the Tri-Cities. It's really going to be a neat opportunity to get one of those outstanding leaders there. We also have 3 dean searches that are underway: the Murrow College of Communications, Connors, and our Dean of Arts and our College of Arts and Sciences. The Connor Search was initiated last year. We went through, we had some candidates, we had an interview on campus, and we just really felt, hey, let's go back out there and make sure we're bringing in the right person to serve as that next dean and not take just a convenient choice. So the individual that came in had a great background at UC Davis, but just wasn't what we felt we needed at this point in time. So we're back out there, and we expect to have that position, the person identified, no later than the first of the year. Well, research, if I look down and use the last bullet point first, about $335 million a year. And this is really a hustle factor, and I want to really point that out. It's been fairly steady at this number over the last 4 or 5 years, but federal funding and research funding continues to tighten up. There's more competition for it, and the fact that we've been able to manage and maintain this level of research really says a lot about our faculty going out, having great ideas, competing on a regular basis, and not just competing, but winning, and something to be proud of. If I look at all of that research, it's hard to take one slide and put 3 things there, but we picked 3 representative projects. The first is a consortium led by WSU of a $30 million research grant with India to look at power infrastructure. And that was one of the more significant grants we received in a long time in our College of Engineering. Amazon exploring the possibility of selling ready-to-eat dishes using food prep technology developed here. And then our physics faculty working on ways to create negative mass. And this was probably the most cited of some of our research done last year. But if you look at these 3 things, we've got an international collaboration that we're leading. We've got an applied research project that led to a commercializable process. And we've got another way that's kind of basic fundamental science. And I think it illustrates the magnitude of the style of research that we do here, from blue sky to eminently practical, internationally, domestic, locally. All of that is part of our $340 million a year operation. Well, let me finish off my section talking a little bit about athletics. And we really had a highly successful year on the field last year. Athletics are an important part of WSU. There are front porch to the universities. I travel around. I have my Coug stuff on. I'll be in Atlanta, or I'll be in New York, and you're wearing it around. You get to go Cougs, and people see that and they recognize it. So this is really a great front porch to our institution. We were in the Holiday Bowl in football, volleyball, second round of the NCAA tournament, first time in the NCAA since 2009. Our women's and men's cross country did great on a regional and national basis. For women's basketball, we are in the women's NIT semifinal. And as I like to point out to groups, what's significant about this is until this last season, we had never won a postseason game in women's basketball. We won 3, and that was with 3 or 4 injured players who are all back. So this could be a really special year for the Cougs in women's basketball. And then women's rowing has consistently been a national powerhouse and finished 14th nationally. Now, when I also go through this, there's times in higher ed that we look and say, athletics has really changed into something. We're sort of a semi-pro operation. All we're doing is preparing people for professional careers as professional athletes. For our 400-plus student athletes, probably less than 5 will pursue professional careers playing sports. And so it's just a reminder, the huge majority of those students are here to compete at an elite level and to get a degree and to go out and do great things. So the other thing we want to look at is our athletic achievements in the classroom. So we had 4 academic, all-district student athletes, 148 all-conference scholar athletes, 6 team academic honors, and this is really a special one. 22 of our student athletes are in our honors college. And it's just a reminder, we're going out and bringing outstanding and exceptional young men and women onto our campus that are making a huge impact. Finally, our women's golf program, recognized by the NCAA last year for ranking the top 10% APR nationally. So lots of things to be excited about. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Dan.
Great. Well, I don't have a crimson sport coat, so I wore gray today. And I might add that I am sporting the color combination that we're wearing tomorrow. Correct, JJ? Apparently, we're wearing my least favorite combination, which is the dark gray jersey. Normally in this time, we really highlight some of the achievements at the college we're speaking or the campus we're speaking. So these are a selection of some Pullman-specific achievements. If you haven't heard, we have started a med school. Actually, this is a system-wide achievement. Our medical school is a community-based medical school. And we have 60 students in the inaugural class that started in August. We're really pleased with that. We're really pleased with the diversity of that group and the academic accomplishments of that group. We also opened up a new facility in Everett. This is our first WSU building in Everett. And you can see a picture of that. It's a really fabulous facility. We have growing number of programs there at WSU Everett. Right now, I believe we have 9 academic programs, and we'll be growing additional programs. They're basically a 2+2 setup where we're accessing students and pipelining students from the community colleges in the region, and then bringing them to our facility to wrap up. And I think we have 4 engineering programs and plans for additional ones. So that's a great presence. WSU is a land-grant university. We have great presence across the state. It's already the 10th anniversary of the Paul G. Allen School of Animal Health. It's hard to believe of that, but that particular unit has really emerged and evolved into a really signature unit for WSU. Just recently received a 5-year, $20 million award from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and actually several awards even since that time to continue their work on zoonotic disease, antimicrobial resistance. So that really is a signature piece. It's obviously housed in the College of Vet Med, but really is an interdisciplinary undertaking involving scientists from all over the university. You know, we talked about our student body. We talked about, or Kirk did, talked about the diversity of that group. One of the things that we find really important to achieve those numbers and those levels is to really be able to pipeline students to WSU, to really find students at young ages, get them college ready for WSU. And certainly the Upward Bound program is one of those programs that is so critical to us to identify and prepare those students. Recently, Student Affairs received a $9 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education to support our Upward Bound efforts. And you can see that that program reaches all over the state of Washington. And finally, the area of research infrastructure is absolutely critical, and faculty in the audience know this, that continual investment in research infrastructure is necessary to reach that $335 million annual figure for our research enterprise. Just an example of that type of investment is a $1.7 million microscopy investment. This X-Radia Ultra microscope, you can see, is really critical for use in programs like materials engineering, material science, chemistry, civil engineering, et cetera. So really just another example of the type of investments, and those of you involved in the research enterprise know that it takes continual, constant investment at this scale across multiple areas to continue to drive to 25 in terms of our research outcomes. And with that segue, we are going to talk about the Drive to 25.
Great, thank you. The first set of slides around the Drive to 25 is nothing new. but it's teeing up sort of a little bit about where we are. Just as a reminder, our goal to be recognized as one of the top 25 public research universities by the year 2030. We've selected and put this out to campus, I think, last spring, 11 different metrics that we're going to use to measure our progress, and they kind of fall in 3 buckets, if you will. The first is AAU metrics, and if you're not familiar with AAU, it's the top 63 public and private research universities in the U.S. and Canada. This has been a long-term goal of Washington State University, certainly way transcends my time here, that has talked about that we would like to be a member of the AAU if and when they ever elect to expand their membership. There's not a clear set of criteria that you say, well, if we achieve this level, now we're an AAU member. It's an invitation-only group, but it's certainly something that we want to make sure we're at least measuring our progress in the same way they would look at it for membership. The second is peer comparison metrics, and these are ones that are common higher ed metrics that all of us use, but we think are critical for WSU at this time. And then 3 items that don't really lend themselves for great comparison with other institutions, but we think at this point in time are critical elements of the university's strategic plan that we want to sort of elevate to that next level. So the AAU metrics, there are 4 common ones. The first is federal research, federal R&D. The second is faculty awards, and these are largely awards around faculty research achievement within their particular professional area. National Academy membership, we have 7 or 8 WSU faculty that are members of either the National Academy of Medicine, Engineering, or Science, and that's a key criteria moving forward. And then citations are the Thomson Reuters Insights, which really measures the publications coming out and impact that those faculty, staff, and student publications are having nationally. If we look at our peer comparison metrics, total R&D, and why do you have 2 R&D measures? The federal is certainly important to the AAU, but so many of our faculty work with foundations, corporations, do research with other particular groups, and we really want to make sure that we're capturing all of that. Doctorates awarded, and annual giving. And annual giving is a philanthropic measure. How many dollars do we have that we're bringing in each year to support faculty, staff, and student success? And then finally, 6-year graduation rate. Now, when you look at this list, you say, hey, it's taken us almost 8 of these metrics to get to anything around our goal of continuing to have a transformational undergraduate program. But if you look at the 6-year graduation rate and say, what does it take to move the needle on this particular point, it's a variety of things. One, that incoming class and the quality of those students coming in. The freshman to sophomore retention rate. How many of our students are we successfully moving from year 1 to year 2? What type of wraparound programs and advising and things like that do we have to ensure student success? So when you look at a single metric, there's a lot that goes into this that, again, goes back to that transformational undergraduate experience. The 3 WSU specifics, the first is percentage of undergraduates involved in research, scholarship, and creative discovery. We're a large public research university, and that is an important part of our being and what we do. And you may say, well, not all of our students are going to pursue research careers or go to graduate and professional school. Why would you have something like this? Well, I think if you look at it this way, our students would have an opportunity to work with a faculty member or postdoc graduate student. You're going to pick a problem. We're going to come up with a proposed plan of attack for that problem. We're going to go execute that problem, and then I'm going to have to make a presentation to a set of peers on that problem. The problem itself here probably isn't as important as the fact that you go and sit down in front of an employer, and almost nobody I can think of out there isn't going to want to see that set of skills in prospective graduates. So it spans more than just somebody wanting to go to graduate school, and I think that's going to be important for us. The second is placement rate of graduates within 6 months of graduation. This doesn't mean just industry, but it's also professional schools, law school, medical school, things like this. But what it really comes down to, are we working with each of our students to help them to get where they would like to go? Whether that's to write a novel, whether that's to be the best chemical engineer ever, to go work in the energy industry, pick whatever you want. Are we working, advising, and counseling our students to kind of help them get where they'd like to be? And then finally, percentage of underrepresented minority faculty, staff, and students. I mentioned earlier that at the university, we've done a really terrific job of continuing to make sure we have a diverse set of students. That's not been as reflected on the faculty and staff side. Now, I want to make it clear, the university's worked on this for years. This is not something new that all of a sudden we decide, hey, we got to work on, but we've got to find a way to kind of come together and ensure that we're putting things in place to have more faculty and staff that walked in the same shoes that so many of our students did, and that's just an important thing going forward. So we've got an overall goal. We got 11 ways we're going to be measuring that progress. So what's next? Well, what we want to do is do some action plans around each of those 11 metrics. And so we assign an individual from the president's cabinet to lead a group of faculty, staff, and students on 3-year action plans around each of these particular things. So those groups are out there, they're meeting. And the critical part is in November, we're going to publish those plans out to the campus community and have electronic tools set up for critique. And this is where we need campus involvement and engagement. Go look at them and say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, here's something you missed, here's something that I think is finally going to happen, those kind of things. We need those comments back. And then the critical thing is we're going to take those comments, modify the plans, put them out in sort of December and off to the races in January. Now, one of the things is some of these things are really difficult, long, big-term challenges, and it's like eating an elephant. If you're not careful, you look the whole time, you can't figure out where to start. Some of this is the reason we're doing a 3-year action plan is let's just pick some things to do to start moving down that direction. After a year or two, you're going to go back and modify it again. The important thing is that we don't look and it becomes such an intractable problem, we never start because we're not sure where to start. So that'll keep moving ahead. Let me spend 2 slides now on the budget update, and this has always been the high point of the presentation for everybody. Not. But let me talk here. I'll show a graph about kind of a little bit where we are as an institution. And then the second slide will really give some details about steps that we're taking in terms of our university finances. So let me step you through this first chart. And what we're going to see here on the axis closest to me is annual revenue less expenses. So what you want to do here is be like the green bar. You want to be above the 0 line here. And what the bar graph shows is what our spending has looked like institutionally over the time frame of FY 2013 on out to 20. So the bottom line is the last year we brought in more money than we spent was FY 2013. And then in 2014, we spent about $24 million more than we received. It went up to almost 25 and 15. It went up to 25.5 and 16. My first year, we spent nearly $30 million over. And so we've seen this downward trend that's moving us in a really wrong direction. Now, the question is, how do you pay for that? If it's at home, what we're doing is we're pulling money out of our savings account basically to balance our family budget. That savings account for us is our reserve funds. And the black line there is our reserve fund balance. And the axis on that side, which you can't possibly read, that's all part of the presidential deal, right? So we put numbers up you can't see. But if we look back at 2013, and where that black line kind of moves across the graph, our balance here was nearly $200 million in reserve funds for the institution. So if we look at where we are today, we are now below $100 million in reserve funds for WSU, and we've got to get this turned around. Where should our reserve fund balance be? You can argue that, but certainly I think we would feel comfortable in the $150 million range. So what we're going to do is we're working with units on spending plans and so forth, and our goal is for next fiscal year for us to finish basically $20 million in deficit spending, the year after that to be 10, and the year after that to get back to a balanced budget for WSU. I say that, you look at the graph, you go, well, sure, that makes sense. Why take 3 years? Let's do it in 1 year. This is going to be a significant challenge for us as a campus because it means we're going to have to spend less money than we have coming in. And part of how we got to this whole place, if you look there, you say, well, Kirk, that's 4 years. I mean, were you just putting the money in a big pile and setting it on fire? I mean, what was going on? This is all money spent on really valuable things. This was salary raises, hiring faculty and staff, doing building renovations. It's things that WSU needed to do as an investment. So it's important things to do, but we've just simply reached the point that we've got to balance this out. So when you talk to deans and department heads and unit leaders and they say, hey, we're going to have to put off doing something for some period of time, or we're not going to be able to fill this position immediately, I understand everybody will go, but we got to have it. What we have to do is really turn this around as an institution and get back to the place where increased revenues mean that we can do investment in programs and things and the great ideas coming out from our campus. So what types of things are we doing in terms of action steps? We have a budget review process that was started when Dan served as interim president. We've continued that through and refined it. Recovery plans are in place for all units that overspent about how they're going to balance all that out. We're looking for new revenue-generating opportunities being explored and implemented. And every time you see something like that, it can get you a little nervous. I mean, is the university just going to look for anything out there to make money? And the answer is no. It needs to be the types of things that fit WSU's culture, fit our plan moving forward, and make sense for us. And we've got a couple of those different things that we've talked about over time, and Dan will talk a little bit about in the next section. Critical review of new and vacant positions before refilling. We'll be asking ourselves when something comes open, do we need to fill it now or not? And we've got several units, for example, that have had openings occur, and it turns out there's redundancy there. So instead of filling that position back, sometimes people have contracted or worked with another unit say, hey, I'm happy to let somebody else handle this. We don't need 3 people to do this. Now we have somebody who left. We're going to do it with 2. So look for those kind of things out there. The replacement of our aged finance, payroll, and human resource software system is really something that's important for us. Our current system was 1970s era, and I'm probably being optimistic there. And, I can be nostalgic for the time I was growing up, not for our computer system supporting payroll. So we need to go and fix this. This is going to be an expensive project. We've kicked this can down the road for many, many years, and we just are not in a position we can do that anymore. So it's about a 4-year process. We're in year 2 of this, and it's not just going and purchasing a software package. That is, certainly part of it. But then what we have to do is all the training. We got to make sure that it's transparent to faculty, staff, and students. Largely, our hope is nobody's life is disrupted with this, but our financial managers at all units have got better data and information to help make better decisions and make sure we don't put ourselves back in a financial hole like we find ourselves in now. So you'll continue to see regular updates about this, but this is something that we simply have to do at this point in time as part of our recovery. The other thing I always want to mention is, sometimes people can look at this and go, man, I know exactly how we got here. It's athletics. If they just could control their spending, we wouldn't have any of these issues. Just to give you some sense of this year, we had a $30 million deficit. Athletics was about 8.4 of this. So the rest of it was overspending on academic units and other types of things. So we're working with our athletics administration, and they've got to do the same thing, and they're going to help us get to that zero balance just like every other unit is on campus. So this is not, nobody's sort of getting a free pass here. It's really a collective campus coming together to make sure we're making the steps we need in the future. I'm going to turn it over to Dan. He's going to finish this up, and then we'll have time for questions.
Well, I'm going to talk about some university initiatives that you may have heard about or perhaps not. So we'll wrap up with these 6 or 7 initiatives. The first initiative actually is quite timely because we're meeting with the N2 Board of Directors right now upstairs. So WSU has entered into a partnership with a for-profit entity named N2. N2 recruits and helps us pathway international students into WSU. So we have set up a joint venture on campus here. Though that joint venture is a place where international students land, if you will, and work through a 6-month to 1-year pathway applicable to their program of study, and then they will pathway into their chosen degree field. We have 160 of these students here this fall, and really pleased with the kickoff of this initiative. It's something that is very important to us. You can see that WSU has about 7% international students, and our peer institutions and particularly our aspirational institutions, those top 25 institutions, are running 18 to 20%. And so we really want to increase this percentage so that we're preparing our students to work and live in a global world. Campus culture and campus climate. Obviously, there's been a lot written about campus climate and broadcast about campus climate, not only at WSU, but throughout our nation. This is an area that we have been working on for forever, really, but certainly since the completion of the Campus Climate Task Force work, we've been working on a variety of action steps. You can see some of those here to really try to improve our campus climate, to make sure that WSU is a welcoming place for all to work and study. A couple things to note here. One of the things that we are doing, and you might have heard about, is that we are really collecting all of our university level offices around the area of diversity and equity and putting them under a single leadership position, which is a new associate vice president position for equity and diversity. And that's an important step as we continue to try to make progress in this area. That'll be an important hire for us. I'm sure you have read and heard about a group of students who had staged a sit-in and have several concerns about the campus climate and the environment, particularly for students of color at WSU. We continue to work with that group and are having really positive conversations with them on a weekly basis, and I think we will be really able to continue to make a lot of progress. They really collapsed their needs and wants into about 5 different areas, and they're very reasonable things that we would all like to do. We have an online initiative that you'll hear a lot more. WSU has a phenomenal online program. We're ranked in the top 15 in the nation by U.S. News and World Report for undergraduate online education. We love U.S. News and World Report in this particular area, not so much in other areas, but for this, they really know what they're doing. So we have plans to build out about 20 additional degree programs, online degree programs. You can see some of those programs. We got 4 programmed for this year, another 7 that we're starting that will be launching in 2018, and 10 more in the next biennia. So these are both graduate and undergraduate programs. And for the students on campus, this has a lot of impact on you as well, because a large number of our on-campus students are now taking 1 or more classes a year online to blend in with their campus face-to-face instruction. High-performance computing. This is, again, another example of that research infrastructure, a project that was started about 1.5 years ago, really essential nowadays for a research-intensive university. We have about 300 faculty using this equipment and our HPC capability. We have students also engaged in using the HPC. This has been really a great success, and we really are looking to expand this, probably double its capacity in the next 1.5 years. And for our students, we do have a focus on increasing the number of courses that are using OERs, or open education resources. There's so much more to the cost of education than just tuition, and one of those is the cost of textbooks. And so we are really working with our faculty and our students in ASWSU to increase the number of classes that use open ed resources to replace textbooks. We're currently, you can see some opportunities there. We will also be coming out shortly with an RFP from our office to allow faculty the opportunity to build their own OERs in their classes and provide them summer salary and other necessary resources to build additional open education resources. And finally, since Phil Weiler's here, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about his project for the online WSU Today, which will launch sometime next month, not next week, which will be an opportunity to really spread the word and for people to have sort of a single point where they can access all things WSU. And I think Phil is still taking recommendations for the name. Right now it's Online WSU Today. I suggested an impromptu fashion the other day, Butch's Beat. I still think that's probably better than Online WSU Today, but I'm sure everybody here, or some people, can do even better than that. So if you got a great name for an online communication product for WSU, let us know. I still think we should let the students name it. They named the Spark the new academic building.
Cool. And with that, we would love to hear any questions or concerns you might have, and I'll make sure I try and repeat them so everybody can hear it. So questions? It's a little dark up here, so not everybody at once.
Oh, wow.
Well, we woke everybody up.
With all these foundation people here, they got to have a question. Put the foundation people on the spot.
That's all right. Well, I just want to express my appreciation for you all coming and listening. And if you have other questions or concerns that come up as you walk back to your office or you just didn't want to say anything, feel free to send us an email note, and we're more than happy to try and answer those. And I'm optimistic about the year. We're up in enrollment. We're going to have we got a couple really fantastic major gifts that we'll be announcing over the next several weeks. So we're on a roll. We'll be 3-0 on Monday in football, and life is good in Cougar Land. So thank you for being here. Go Cougs.